Welcome on board the Rich Planet Starship, broadcasting from somewhere high above the Earth. I'm Richard D. Hall, and I'm going to kick things off with a little bit of news. According to a report by the government think tank Demos, terrorists use conspiracy theories in attempts to discredit the government and recruit new members. Really? The report urges the government and secret services to be more open to stop extremist groups using conspiracy theories to discredit them. Could they be referring to me, I wonder? The study calls for greater communication with trusted community leaders and individuals. The report goes on to say that groups are using conspiracy theories to recruit and radicalize people to commit acts of violence. Really? It goes on to give examples of what it calls conspiracy theories, such as the attacks on New York on 9/11 and in London on 7/7 were inside jobs carried out by the authorities in the US and UK. It also recommends lessons on conspiracy theories in schools and lessons on online sources like blogs, Wikipedia and newspapers for secondary school students that focus on digital literacy and counter-knowledge. More needs to be done in schools to teach young children digital literacy, such as being taught to tell the difference between propaganda and honest and accurate reporting, argues the think tank. Jamie Bartlett, an extremism expert at Demos, said the more open the government is, the harder it is for extremist groups to make stories out of silence. Clearly there are occasions when more transparency is not possible for reasons of national security. But the degree to which conspiracy theories make up part of the extremist mindset and worldview suggests it needs to be confronted. He said such theories destroy the trust that exists between the government and communities, which is the basis of effective counter-terrorism work. Presumably Jamie is talking about some of the items regularly discussed on this show. If Jamie is correct that the theories about 9/11 and 7/7 are unfounded, then one would imagine he would be happy to talk about this and defend his viewpoint. I emailed Jamie asking him if he would like to put us all straight on our misguided conspiracies. He has so far not had the courtesy to reply to my email. Unless he is brave enough to debate these subjects and put his arguments to someone of an opposing view, such as myself, he is hiding behind the blatantly biased organization called Demos, and his words are not worthy of any serious consideration unless he is prepared to come on here and debate them with me. Let me enlighten you, Jamie. These are not theories. They are backed up by solid facts and evidence, mountains of it. I invite you to come on my show, and I will show you the facts and evidence which prove beyond any reasonable doubt that both 9/11 and 7/7 terrorist attacks were carried out by government agents, not by Islamic terrorists. To think that people actually get paid for writing this drivel at Demos. What did you do today? I did 5 hours of thinking for the think tank. Really? Was it good thinking? Yes, it was great thinking. Here's a whole load of cash. The MI5 agent and international war criminal Tony Blair visited Dublin recently to attend the first book signing of his memoirs entitled A Journey. He was met by angry protesters who threw eggs and shoes at him. The only journey many people want him to take is to the International Criminal Court to stand trial for war crimes and mass genocide for the millions of people he helped organize to murder in Iraq and Afghanistan. Now, on this week's show, I won't be interviewing a guest on the Starship, but I will be featuring 3 very interesting people down on planet Earth. In part 3, Alan Turnbull will be exploring theories about an underground secret base near Chorley. In part 2, UFO enthusiast Mick Toms will be describing a Welsh UFO case from 1983 where pieces of a craft were actually recovered. But before all of that, I'll be featuring a very interesting guy called Mark Murphy, who has devised what he calls the cyclical theory of evolution. The theory is a much broader theory than, say, Darwinian evolution, and perhaps it could be described as a theory of everything. Take it away, Mark.
Hello, Rich Planet Starship viewers. My name is Mark, and I want today to discuss a new theory on evolution. Now, this theory on evolution doesn't replace Darwinian theory on evolution. It kind of runs in parallel. And it's a cyclical theory of evolution. Basically, it goes around and around and around. This particular theory of evolution doesn't only apply to humans, it applies to animals, and it also applies to any groups of animals or humans. If you look at the diagram here, you'll see the first section on the diagram is efficiency. Now, efficiency is nature's greatest gift. Nature is 100% efficient. It converts light into energy in plants with 100% efficiency, something that humans can only dream of doing, with modern solar panels being only 15% efficient. Then you can see it moves on to no square planets. This basically proves efficiency everywhere you see. If something spins for long enough, the resistance upon it means that it will eventually form a circle, a sphere. That's because that is the most ergonomic shape if you are going to spin around. Moving on from efficiency, you'll see the next stage is invention. Now, invention is something that goes back a long, long time, right back to fire. When we invented, or should I say discovered fire, basically what it did for us is it gave us some time back, because we could stay awake longer in the evenings. We could make arrowheads and prepare things and make clothes and so on. That freed up valuable daylight hours for more hunting. That made us more efficient, because we were spending daylight hours hunting and evenings making clothes and things like that. From invention, we move up to agriculture. After we got ourselves established in the caves, not long after, we invented agriculture, because we realised that if we grew all of the plants that we wanted in the same place, it would save us time hunting and foraging, going looking for these plants, and, more valuable, energy. Then you can see the next thing on the list is money. Now, money is an invention. We invented money because the barter system is too complicated to use, ultimately, because if a plumber needs some bread and the bread maker doesn't need any plumbing doing, then you need something in between. So we had to invent money, and we'll come to money again later. Further on the list, you can see society. Now, society is an invention because we invented it. Without modern society, we would just be roaming around looking after ourselves. There wouldn't be any laws, there wouldn't be any establishment, there would be anarchy as on the streets. So basically, we invented society to try and keep things in order, to keep them predictable, and to keep them productive, more importantly. As you can see from the diagram, the main thing that we consume is oil. Oil is everywhere, from the clothes you're wearing, to the energy that you're using, to the food you eat. You are using oil in some way, shape or form. The whole human race is wholly dependent upon it, which is a particularly dangerous place to be, and we'll touch on that later as well. Now, another thing in the consumption line is the media. It's not that we consume the media consumes us, because we are controlled and manipulated by the media to buy their products. They always want to sell us things, and that is also driving consumption. Moving on from slavery and work, you can see healthcare. Now, healthcare might sound like a very odd thing to put under consumption. In America, it certainly is something that people consume. But if our healthcare system didn't exist, we wouldn't be consuming certain items. For example, beauty lotions, things that make us fit, things that make us feel better, and all this kind of stuff. It's all part of this great big consumer society, which everybody watching this program can see all around. Now, the natural progression from consumption is greed. Now, nature likes the path of least resistance. The path of least resistance really goes right back to the beginning of this theory, inefficiency. The path of least resistance for greed is theft. So if you're a greedy bankster and you want to get a lot of money, the easiest way of getting that money is to steal it. So that's exactly what people in large banks and corporations like to do. So theft is really only nature at work, so maybe we can't blame the banksters for stealing all our money. Obviously, without greed, crime would be almost unheard of, because the main nature of crime is to take something from someone else. Sometimes it's their life, in a lover's tiff maybe, but usually it's based on money, property, possessions, cars, so on and so forth. If there was no money, then there would be no class, there would be no greed, and there would be no crime. So it's very interesting to think, realistically, all crime comes from greed. Now, as you look down the list from greed, you'll see right and wrong. Now, right and wrong, you might think, is black and white. However, what we think is right today, some time ago, may have been considered very wrong. And what we consider wrong today, next year, may be considered right. After all, people invade countries because they think that they've got weapons of mass destruction, and they're right on that day. A year later, maybe not so right. After you've got greedy, the next stage in the cycle is dependence. Because once you've got used to the stuff, you become dependent upon it. Now you can see, moving down the list, the first item is education. Now, education might seem to some people like a very unusual thing to have under dependence. However, what education does in a modern society is educate the young children to become consumers. It educates them to learn only what the teachers and henceforth the government tell them to learn. And education is just a new way of creating more consumers for tomorrow. Again, moving down the list, you'll see oil is on the list again, because we are dependent on oil, and it's a very, very dangerous position to be in. Oil and natural gas are finite, they will run out, and when they do run out, we'll run out of many, many other things, including the next item on the list, which is food. Because currently we have a global food shortage. We do every year. 1/3 of all the world's crops fail every year. And natural gas is used in pretty much every fertilizer on Earth. And natural gas is going to run out a long time before oil. So realistically, even more crops are going to fail when the fertilizers are gone. They're not going to be as high yielding. So that's another thing that we have to look out for the future, because we are wholly dependent on other people for food. We're not growing our own food anymore. Another dangerous thing in dependence is hybrid seeds. We see it more and more today, F1, F2 hybrid seeds. Heirloom seeds are the type of seeds where you grow the plant and you can grow another plant from the fruit or the crop from that plant. For tomatoes, example, you would take the tomato, you could take the seeds out and plant them and grow another tomato plant. With an F1 and F2 hybrid, you can't necessarily do that. Some of them don't grow at all, some of them grow weaker, and some of them go off in crazy directions. And this is not an accident, because if you can only buy hybrid seeds at some stage, which seems to be the way that things are heading, ultimately you've got a captive audience, because every year we, the consumer, have to buy new seeds. We can't grow our own. Then we get into an even more dependent position where we're dependent on large corporations to provide us with our seeds, which is again a very dangerous position to be in, because large corporations don't have our best interests at heart. Moving down the list, you can see finally machinery. Machinery we are dependent upon for crops, for making this video, for watching this video, and for everything in between. So machinery is something that we need to keep an eye on, because if we are wholly dependent on machinery and any part of this cycle disappears, we are in big trouble. Now, moving around the cycle, you can see after dependence comes division stroke diversion. You can see under division and diversion, race. It's obvious for everybody to see that there are divisions between people in race, sexuality, colour, creed, geopolitical position, politics, anything at all. If there's something that we can fight about, the human race seems to be convinced that it's a great thing to do. Moving down from there, you can see religion. Now, religion is a great diversion. It keeps people looking up at the stars, pointing at statues, touching things, all this kind of nice business. Keeps people busy, and whilever they're busy, they're not working out this theory. Also, you've got on the list class, which is yet another division. After that, you can see the internet. Now, not a division, possibly it is, but mostly a diversion, along with many other technological gizmos. You must have noticed how each new gadget you get is increasingly less user-friendly than the previous one. Each new version of software you get has got that button that's moved and something else that's removed and something that's deleted, and something that used to be really handy just up here is now down here and half the size. You must have noticed this. So internets, technology, computers, they're all really, really diverting us and stopping us from seeing what's actually going on around us in the world. Now, moving around the cycle is selection, the first element of which is evolutionary blips. Now, this is something you may or may not have heard of before. I've invented a very simple way of understanding what an evolutionary blip is. At some stage in history, a fish must have developed a flipper and some gills that could breathe air and drag it up onto the land. At some stage, on one day, in one sea, there was one fish that did it first. It was the first one to actually pull itself out of the water. At one stage, there was one monkey that decided it wanted to stand more upright than the others, and so on and so forth. These are evolutionary blips, and I classify them as three types of people, as in humans today. We've got the blips, which are the ones that nature selects for progression, if you like, or for existence. And nature sticks its little pin in the map, says to you, you are going to be a survivor. And you wake up one morning and you say to yourself, you know, I think I'm rather dependent on other people for most of the things in my life. I need to look after myself more. Maybe I need to stop listening to what people are telling me in the media. Those are evolutionary blips, and if you're watching this, you could well be one of them. Well done. The second group are the pings. Now, a ping is someone who, like a sonar, listens to something and responds. The ping hears the information, like this video, and thinks, actually, maybe that guy's got a point. And he listens, and he reads, and he looks things up, and he learns, and he basically comes to the same conclusion and achieves the same status as the blip. So then you've got the blips, the pings, and unfortunately the last group is the pongs. The pongs, unfortunately, don't want to listen, they don't want to learn, they're caught up in the consumerist society, they won't be told no matter what you say to them, they're not interested, and unfortunately they make up probably 95% of the world's population. I suspect that they are probably not nature's survivors. That's probably the kindest way of putting it. So you have to decide whether or not you think you're a blip, a ping, or a pong. Moving along from that, you can see de-education. De-education is the dumbing down of the population through various means, primarily through the media, but primarily also from the government, because the government decide what the children are going to learn. And if they teach the children a load of useless rubbish, they're going to leave school with nothing but a head full of useless rubbish. And there's nothing you can do about that because it's decided from above. Only teach the children yourself. De-education is a major, major problem, and it is another way that nature selects who is going to be a blip, a ping, or a pong. Moving around the list to the final stage is reduction. Now, there are lots of people on the planet, and the number is growing every day. We're over-consuming oil, gas, food, CO2 production, overfishing, the list goes on. And it cannot carry on. And I believe that nature is going to stop it from carrying on. It can do this through a variety of means, such as war, famine, natural disaster, earthquakes, tsunamis, and so on and so forth. Some of them we can bring about ourselves, such as famine, and some of them such as war. Some of them may be bordering on the edge of Gaia theory, such as earthquakes and things like that. They may be the case. That's another video for another day. But there you have it. That is the end of the cycle. After our number has been reduced to whatever survives, then we will have to become efficient again. At the moment, we burn lots of energy, we burn lots of fuel, we throw away lots of food. We are very inefficient, and nature didn't design us to be inefficient, it designed us to be very efficient, because that is nature's way. After our number has been reduced, we will have to become very efficient very, very quickly. That's the end of the theory. I hope you got some good information from that. I hope that maybe woke a few people up, gave you something to think about. So there you go. Thank you for watching. Thank you to Richard D. Hall and Rich Planet Starship for having me on. See you all later. Bye-bye.